The tale of Christopher Columbus discovering America has long been known and hotly debated. Can it really be called a discovery when the land was already inhabited? Moreover, Columbus stumbled across parts of South and Central America, not what we generally define as North America. These questions are valid but often overshadow another important inquiry. Why do we credit the discovery of the Americas by Europeans to Columbus and not the Vikings? Roughly 5 centuries before Christopher Columbus even laid eyes on American land, it was Leif Erikson, a Scandinavian Viking, who stepped onto North American soil. Today, it's believed that he was actually the first European to ever do so. The Viking explorer, Leif Erikson. Leif Erikson was born in Iceland around 970 AD to the prominent Viking explorer Eric the Red. Eric had first lived in Iceland after his father had been banished from their ancestral land of Norway for manslaughter. When Leif was just a boy, Eric himself was exiled from Iceland for following in his father's footsteps and murdering a neighbor. This meant that Leif spent part of his childhood in Greenland, where Eric had founded a new settlement. As an adult, Erikson decided to journey to Norway, where King Olaf I Tryggvason convinced the young adventurer to convert to Christianity. The monarch then tasked Leif with returning to Greenland to convert his fellow pagan settlers. However, what happened next is unclear because there are 2 sagas that provide differing accounts of Leif Erikson's adventures. The sagas, Icelandic legends of Leif's journey. Sagas are Icelandic legends originally passed down orally before being written down centuries later. In the case of Erikson, there are 2 sagas that tell of his journey to the New World. While both begin around 1000 AD, the rest of the details tend to differ. In one saga, known as the Saga of the Greenlanders, Leif had heard fantastical tales of a mysterious land across the ocean from a man named Bjarni Herjolfsson. Bjarni was a trader from Iceland who had sailed roughly a decade earlier towards what was supposed to be Greenland, but ended up being more in the direction of North America. While he never set foot on the land he spotted in the distance, he knew it was there and that he had overshot Greenland. Intrigued by the idea of an undiscovered land, Leif Erikson rallied a crew to join him on a voyage to this new world. Leif's expedition. With 35 men and a ready ship, Leif set off to recreate Bjarni's journey. The explorer and his crew successfully sailed across the vast Atlantic, eventually reaching the shores of North America, somewhere in present-day Canada. Erikson named his new discovery Helgeland, which in Old Norse meant stone slab land, a fitting name for what the Vikings had at their feet. Today, historians believe this area to be Baffin Island, though the saga couldn't specify. The Scandinavians then made their way further south, likely to modern-day Labrador, which Leif called Markland, meaning forest land, for its multitude of trees and lumber resources. This new world was already proving to be quite a positive find, and the Vikings became even more entranced as they made their way to what historians believe was the tip of Newfoundland. This is where it seems that Erikson and his men set up their base camp and spent the winter, taking advantage of the more tolerable weather than they were used to back home. Their further explorations unearthed vast rivers filled with delicious salmon, stunning greenery, and so many wild grapes that Leif termed the region Vinland, or Wineland. The second saga, a different story. While the Saga of the Greenlanders paints Leif's journey as a deliberate and successful expedition, the second saga, known as the Saga of Eric the Red, suggests that discovering the New World was a mistake. This alternative version posits that Leif was actually on his way back from Norway to Greenland and accidentally stumbled across the American continent. Regardless of the reason for the trip, Erikson and his men eventually made their way back to Greenland, around which time the death of Eric the Red made Leif the new chief of the Greenland settlement. From that point, Erikson would never again return to North American lands, leaving behind no permanent settlement or colony where his Canadian adventure had occurred. However, other Vikings continued to explore the New World in the following years, establishing multiple temporary settlements. Only 3 years after Leif's expedition, his brother Thorvald embarked on his own excursion in North America. Unfortunately, ongoing conflict with the native populations led to Thorvald's death, making him what many believe to be the first European buried in American ground. The validity of the sagas. But can we trust these sagas at all? Are they real history? According to quite a few historians and archaeologists, yes, we can trust the Icelandic stories, and they do include actual historical facts, even if some of the details may have been tweaked over the years. Evidence to support the stories of Leif's trip to North America has been found, correlating tightly with the sagas. In 1960, Helge Ingstad, a Norwegian explorer searching for Viking remnants in modern-day Canada, found just what he was looking for. After tirelessly probing the coasts of Labrador and Newfoundland, Ingstad unearthed the remains of a centuries-old settlement on the northern tip of Newfoundland, specifically in L'Anse aux Meadows. An archaeology team, including experts from around the world, confirmed that these ruins belonged to Vikings and dated back to the same century that Eriksson allegedly settled in the area. Further evidence came from a 2021 study published in the journal Nature. Scientists tested 3 pieces of wood from the Viking ruins to determine their exact age. They successfully dated the lumber to the year 1021 AD. While this might seem to contradict the sagas, which place Leif's expedition closer to 1000 AD, many scholars argue that this does not negate the saga's validity. Dr. Colleen Beatty, a Viking specialist with the Institute for Northern Studies in Scotland, notes that the presence of Vikings in North America in the 1020s could represent a stage of occupation rather than the initial arrival. Columbus versus Eriksson. Who deserves the credit? So, was Christopher Columbus the first European to discover the Americas? Or was it Leif Erikson and his band of Vikings? Did Columbus discover the southern and central parts of the continent, while the Vikings found the north 500 years earlier? Or can we even call any of it a discovery given the vast population of indigenous tribes that already inhabited the continents? These questions are still up for debate. However, the stories told in Icelandic legends about a Viking explorer finding the New World are no longer disputable. Today, the remains of Eriksson's settlement in Newfoundland are part of a UNESCO heritage site. In 1964, American President Lyndon Johnson declared October 9th to be Leif Erikson Day, marking the anniversary of the 1825 landing of the Norwegian immigrant ship Restoration. Coincidentally, early October also holds the date of Christopher Columbus Day. In 2023, both adventurers were commemorated on the same day. Columbus and Eriksson both brought European life and death to American soil, intruding on the land of the Native American tribes in the name of exploration and colonization. But technically, it was the Vikings who discovered North America first. As we reflect on these historical narratives, it's crucial to acknowledge the complex and often painful legacies of exploration and colonization. The stories of Columbus and Eriksson are intertwined with the experiences of the indigenous peoples who inhabited these lands long before any Europeans arrived. Understanding this broader context helps us appreciate the full scope of history and the many voices that contribute to our understanding of the past.